Welcome, everyone, to the Daily Fix on Fantasy and Frames. My apologies that we are over an hour behind schedule. That is on me. My power decided to go out about 15 minutes before the show started. It offended Joe Matt so much that we were going to be late. He didn't even show up tonight. He's like, I'm out. I'm done. But luckily, my good buddy Kevin Tompkins is here. And on the other side, we're going to get you ready for week 4 of Draftkings multi-entry events. And we're back. Again, apologies for being late. Thank you for hanging out with us. Joe Matz, I guess it's actually Mr. Matz's, Joe's dad's birthday today. I think they were going to the D-backs game, so I hope they're having a good time, while at the same time as a Braves fan, I hope the D-backs are losing. But my good buddy Kevin, who joined the show this year, we are so excited to have him every Friday night with us. He's back after last week. Do you have the plague? Is that what it was, Kevin? What was going on?
Just overworked and underslept and underfed and a lot of stuff going on, a whole big confluence of things, but we're all good. We are ready to hit the week 4 streets here in DFS. Just to give you an update on the Arizona Diamondbacks, they are losing 4-2 at the end of the first inning. A lot of fireworks happening at I don't know if it's still Chase Field or whatever the hell Arizona calls their ballpark.
Yeah, whatever that is. Again, I just hope they lose. The Braves kind of got screwed, if you ask me, with the nasty weather that we saw in my area over the last 2 days, thanks to the hurricane. They had all their aces lined up, and now that's a mess. I don't know what they're doing. They're talking about holding sell off until either Monday or maybe even potentially the playoffs if they think they got that locked up. But anyways, this is not a baseball show. That's not what we're here to talk about.
It can be, though. I did actually, my buddy Jameson Tyon, by the way, hour and 48 minutes that Cubs game went today. The shortest Cubs game since 2001. I asked him if he was double parked. He said he was not.
That is fantastic. That's why I'm back in on baseball, to be honest with you. Just the games got too long for my ADD ass. And I got to give them a lot of credit for shortening the game and just making it such a more watchable product, because you're not watching people scratch their junk for 30 minutes of the game anymore. So,
I mean, hey, there's a market for that too, I'm sure. But
you're damn right. Hello, Stacey Perez. Just kidding. We love you, Stacey. But again, we cover each week the multi-entry events for DraftKings. Week 4, boy, lot of stuff that we did not expect already 4 weeks into this DFS season, from Andy Dalton and Deontay Johnson being the heroes of many DFS lineups. Juwan Jennings deciding he's going to break fantasy football last week, replacing Kittle and Debo. But week 4, we still have some injuries out there. Let's start at the QB position. Obviously in cash, I think that Kyler and Jaden Daniels are going to be uber owned, and rightfully so. The rushing upside is so big, but
50.5 point total too.
I mean, do you think that because there's some people that I'm not going to name names because I don't like to call people out like that, but they've said they think that game is actually going to be a big time under. Both teams are going to try to run. I don't see that. Do you see any chances of that? Or because I just think both these defenses are awful and their quarterbacks are electric.
Well, it's like a high variance thing. Like, I mean, I know both defenses are like not. I mean, certainly the Commanders are not great. Arizona has been at least, I don't want to say competent, but at least not a pushover. I will say that.
They have improved for sure.
Yeah, but I would say certainly that we're talking about range of outcomes here, and obviously the 50.5. Some smart people think that game's going to go over. I can totally see it. On the other side, you could also just have both offenses just fail, and I could see that game being like one of those ugly turnover filled, like 22-7 17 or some stupid score like that could just be bad for everybody involved. Like, there's a lot of ways to play it, but like looking through the quarterbacks, it's kind of gross this week. There's not a lot of guys that stand out that are like worth the price. Like, we'll talk about that, but a lot of them are like have the questionable tag, the scarlet letter, if you will. Justin Herbert. Obviously, we don't know about Jordan Love till like literally inactives come out on Sunday. But yeah, there's not a lot of great matchups out there. I mean, I think the field is going to really gravitate toward Murray and Daniels as like the two chalk guys. And then there's going to be a lot of like spread out ownership that you could probably get by with even the elite options at pretty good ownership.
Well, you know, it is a party because Mr. Scampers is in the house. What's going on, Mr. Scampers? Let's start with those QBs. Give me a guy that intrigues you this week for MME.
For MME, I mean, if you're not hip to the Arizona-Washington game, might I interest you in? I know it's 7K, but CJ Stroud against the Jacksonville defense that has no idea what they're doing. I mean, just you could pretty much say that about the entire team at this point. But no Tank Dell for the Texans. That is probably a pretty good thing if you're looking at the other options with CJ or with Stephon Diggs, with Nico Collins. You know, that stack for the Texans, while it's expensive, you could probably get a nice 90 points of, if you put those three stacks. If you're expecting the game for Houston in the passing game where like Stroud passes for 300 and 3 touchdowns, one or both of those guys likely get there as well, unless you get like a random 4 touchdown game from Dalton Schultz, which I don't think that's likely, but could happen. So I do like
more
that Houston
condensed, right? Don't you think like a more? I mean, it's just going to condense the offense. Do you think it's better or worse for Stroud if Mixon plays?
If Mixon plays, I think it's probably a little bit better just because you have the threat of Mixon, working his way in and actually being competent versus, I mean, that was a weird game script against Minnesota where, they got down early. Cam Akers couldn't really do anything. And then they were just stuck having to pass, but it's probably better in the long run for Mixon, especially if that game is not a blowout. If that game is like a 14-point game where Houston still kind of has to hit the gas pedal a little bit, that's not like a bad thing, obviously, for any of those pass catchers, but you do run the risk of like Mixon getting a lot more work and taking away from the overall upside if you're playing the pass catchers in Stroud.
What about Caleb Williams? Because there's really 2 guys for MME that I'm looking at. Caleb's the first one. The Rams don't have a great pass rush. If you look at his numbers when he has at least 3 seconds to pass, a lot better than when he's got constant pressure. The problem is Chicago's offensive line is not good. But
also their offensive coordinator, not good.
Well, that's a very fair point. Whole coaching staff, not great. I mean, I do think though, if Allen's back, Rams run zone at one of the highest rates in the NFL. Both Keenan, historically just feasts against zones. Same for what we have seen of Roma Dunze, Cole Kmet. Imagine that when you're not playing a tight end who is washed like 60, 70% of the snaps, and you play the guy that's pretty good and had a really good stretch down, the end of last season. Caleb Williams looked a lot better. My one concern is that game kind of an ugly rock fight, right? Where the Rams are going to try to shorten the game. Both teams, I don't know how Chicago is going to run. I mean, are we going to get Johnson, you think, this game? Or is this a deal where they continue to pound DeAndre Swift in his 1.2 yards per carry or whatever it is?
I mean, they've already come out and said that they want to get Roschon Johnson more work. And if you've seen DeAndre Swift run the ball in 3 games, it's hashtag not good. Complete dead last in rush yards over expectation, even surpassing the movable object Rachaad White. So that's probably that's how it's gotten bad. But Jacob Gibbs earlier this morning put out a great thread of a lot of the pass plays that for Caleb Williams, and just going, it's just a big thread of like 7 to 10 plays, just showing some of the route concepts that they're pretty much forcing upon Caleb Williams, giving him no time to throw, like 2 outside like vertical routes and then like the inside slots running like out routes toward the sideline with nothing in the middle. Like, you're already putting this kid behind the 8 ball, and having Caleb Williams need to take the slings and arrows for Shane Waldron, and it's getting to the point where it's like something has to give here, with whether it's Waldron just getting the heave ho, or Caleb Williams having his like confidence shot. Yeah. So I do like Caleb Williams. I mean, no doubt about it. I think the fact that he's able to make Roma Dunte had a fantastic game. So did DJ Moore. He was 1 yard away from catching a touchdown at the end of the first half on that Hail Mary. But, if he did, we'd been probably talking a different tune. And Caleb Williams would probably be 6,600 instead of 5,600. But, I mean, to succeed in spite of your offensive coordinator shows your talent. I mean, for 5,600, you really can't beat that price, knowing the firepower that the Bears have at home against a Rams defense that can be passed on.
Yeah. What's going on, Rachel? Rachel in the house.
Rachel.
Good to see you. Tootsie Pop, one of my favorites. Justin Fields is intriguing to me this week. Indy's defense is awful. He's still very reasonably priced at 5,500. Without DeForest Buckner. I mean, this was a bad defense before. DeForest Buckner went on the IR. You look at what Caleb Williams did from a passing standpoint the first 2 games, 267 yards. He had 363 against this Colts defense last week. I also like the fact that Malik Willis rushed for 41 yards for your Green Bay Packers against this defense in week 2. That's good for Fields. And, Fields had his best fantasy game last week, threw it really well, scored 19.4 points. He did have the touchdown on the ground, but to me, what is really impressive is he scored at least 11.5 points each game, and he's got right now 90 rushing yards and a touchdown. So we are still waiting for the Fields monster rush game, which we know if he keeps starting, it's coming. And then the other big thing is, yes, I'm a nerd, and no, maybe this doesn't mean anything, but he's played 6 career dome games in his career as a starting quarterback. He's got 6 passing touchdowns in those, 81 rushing yards per, 2 more rushing touchdowns. Almost 20 points per game in those, 17 points or more in 5 of 6. Kind of makes sense, right? Really fast quarterback, fast surface. He is intriguing to me, and I also really like pairing him, and we'll talk about it when we get the wide receivers, with Calvin Austin, who's been excellent versus the zone, which the Colts run at the highest rate in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't mind Fields at all. That's a pretty good price. It's 5,500 for a guy that, obviously has rushing upside, has probably his best game passing maybe of his entire career, outside of like those random Bears games where he had like those spike like 60, 70 yard bombs, and
right.
Was, as far as like a complete passer as an NFL quarterback and what you're expected to, probably had his best game last week. But there are other Steelers that I do like outside of that, but you could pair him with a certain running back and probably be pretty profitable in that. So I do like Fields. I mean, when you're starting to get into the Andy Daltons, the Deshaun Watsons, those kind of quarterbacks, I mean, he sticks out like a sore thumb as far as a guy that, can not just pay off his price, but return like multiple X value.
Any other QBs that are and I mean, again, MME, we should make the point that any QB is intriguing. Let me ask you this. Your boy Jordan Love, if he plays, I know Minnesota, very difficult matchup. I would not throw him out there because of, how blitz heavy they are, but different, defenders, same scheme last year. He torched this Vikings team. He's been very good for his career against the blitz. Is that somebody who I think people might be a little leery to play him because of how good Minnesota's D's, been coming off the injury? I don't hate it if you're looking from that standpoint, and he does go. And then the other part of that question is, if it's Malik Willis with what he's done, do you have any confidence again? Because he's definitely surprised everyone with his first 2 performances as starting QB for the Packers.
Yeah, Brian Flores is pretty much playing Madden right now, asking Madden, and he's going to engage 8 and then just spamming X. Like that's And it's working. That's the thing, is that Pride 4 has no F's given with that defense. But I'm a little bit worried with Jordan Love just because we know MCL sprain and you're gonna have some reduced mobility with that, at least the outset. Like, I mean, look at Kirk Cousins. I know that was an Achilles, but like when you're not sure about what you can do on a leg, where you can plant it, how you can move, how fast you can move, like that's not great. So as adept as Jordan Love is, we're getting an upgrade of the passing game. I'd still be very leery about that particular defense with the confluence of Jordan Love's knee MCL sprain. I don't know if I want to touch it, but I can understand the play. Green Bay's at home. It's a division game. They're going to need this game big time. Minnesota's 3-0. That's who they're going to be battling, obviously with Detroit as well for the division. So look, Jordan Love is probably going to be playing in this game. I think he probably could have played last week. I know he wanted to, but get him another week for a divisional game. Like, that's fine. I just don't know if I want to stomach that, where it's the possibility that they could just run the ball a little bit more. They'll split the difference. I feel like if they lean toward the run a little more, the difference being like Malik Willis with like Josh Jacobs getting like 30 carries or whatever it was against the Titans or Colts. Yeah. I mean, and
Titans,
then
yeah, right.
Yeah. But the run heavy approach versus, what they typically do, which is probably about a 60% pass. I mean, I could totally see them just wanting to run the ball a little bit more, protect him a little bit more, which does take off the upside there, especially at 6K, which for a guy coming off an MCL sprain, like that's not a great price to me.
No, I agree. All right, running backs. Barkley's obviously going to be uber owned, rightfully so. Great matchup. Hall, same deal. Do you think Jonathan Taylor can run on that Pittsburgh defense? Because they have not, to me, faced a back with Taylor's skill set. And that's no disrespect to Bijan Robinson. He's just a little bit better breaking tackles. It would not shock me. My scare is obviously what can Richardson do against them, and if they get behind, that's just such a bad situation for the Colts. But in this expensive range, kind of who are you looking at? Who intrigues you? What are kind of your initial thoughts?
I mean, I like Taylor. Just eye test wise, Taylor's looked like a lot better to me, at least from last year to this year. Him and Barkley are like the two scariest fades that I've had. I mean, I wasn't outright fading Taylor, as like an anchor guy, because I typically don't draft like two running backs the first 3 rounds unless it's
what Kevin Tompkins doesn't.
I know
early.
I know, but no, it's Taylor can run on anybody. I don't care who you are. Like
4.5% projected ownership on DK. That's what intrigues me about him. Is like I think he's going to be really low owned, and we know he could go bananas at any point.
Right, and and if you're going to pay up at anywhere, I think it's probably running back at least this week. If you're just going to really hammer that home, but yeah, I don't mind that. And I'm looking at some other guys. Like I don't even mind Jordan Mason at 6,700 either against the Patriots. I mean, it's a good price. You got to figure that game script is going to. Look, the San Francisco 49ers, I'm sorry, if they lose to the Patriots, then it's time to sound the alarm. I mean, I know that the 49ers got McVayed last week, and kind of, it was like a Scooby-Doo, like an episode of Scooby-Doo where like you think the bad guy's going to win, and all of a sudden the rug gets pulled and McVay pulls the mask off. That's pretty much what they did to the 49ers last week. Other than that, Aaron Jones, 6,400 revenge game.
I'm with you.
100%. Yeah, I do. He's looked fantastic too. He's not being managed as much as, we kind of thought he was going to be with Ty Chandler. Ty Chandler's been like a pure handcuff more than like what we thought he was going to have some standalone value. That hasn't been the case. Like Chandler's been in for like a spell, and that's about it. Chandler's not getting drives. That's the most important thing. So I definitely like Aaron Jones there. I think that, if you're going to play massive leverage on the Washington-Arizona game, James Conner's a really good pick at 6,500 as well.
Maybe a little less owned after last week too. It's kind of my hope is people are, how people have really short memories and they're going to be going, well, he sucked last week. I'm not rolling with him again. I think that Washington's offense is legit. And if I'm Arizona, my game plan would be I want to kind of keep Jaden Daniels and that offense off the field. I mean, what is it, like 17 out of their last 19 possessions of equal points, not including kneel downs? Hello.
Right. You want to hear something crazy too?
Sure.
Here's one. Who is second in rush EPA this year? What team?
Oh, I have no idea.
The Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, Moss.
Zach Moss. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. At Carolina, I'm not saying like the clock is gonna, the lightning's gonna strike twice. It certainly could for the Carolina Panthers, but I do like Zach Moss, and this is just feeding into the whole Zach Moss thing of every time he gets like a couple starts, he's awesome. He's basically Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton has a couple of fantastic starts, and then Andy Dalton turns into Andy Dalton. Zach Moss is running back Andy Dalton. So you know what? We're still in week 4. We can get some more mileage out of him.
75% of the snaps, he's seeing 83% in the red zone, 70% of the team's rush attempts, running routes on 59% of the passing plays, kind of like what you're talking about with the Minnesota backfield. Yeah. Same deal here. It's Moss's backfield. I think Cincinnati's offense is elite. The way Burrow's playing, to your point, with the EPA run. And I think the Panthers' defense is awful. And I could see the Bengals getting up big and a lot of Moss.
That could be a shootout too, if we're being honest. And Andy Dalton revenge game.
Andy Dalton revenge game. I forgot the Red Rocket. That's right. So we got that's 2. If Mixon is out, Akers. He was on the field for 90% of the snaps last week. I know it did not work out the way people wanted. He handed 80% of the rush attempts.
Yeah, it's bad game script. I'm not worried about that. If Akers is there and he's playing like I don't know, I'm not saying he's a jam. 5,300, I guess he's a jam, but everybody else is going to be doing that too, more than likely to save money at running back.
I know where everybody is not going to be doing it, and Mr. Scampers with me. It sounds like you might be as well. Is it Cordell Patterson time in Pittsburgh? Jalen Warren's out. Najee Harris banged up. He had 7 touches last week in a game that both guys played. Colts have allowed the second most rushing yards in the NFL and will be obviously without their best defender, DeForest Buckner. And as somebody who watched Arthur Smith in Atlanta, he loves Cordell Patterson because obviously, I get it. Like he made Cordell Patterson as just a kick returner basically into a Pro Bowl running back by giving him a shot. I tell people in deep leagues, like if I was in a 16-team league, I would be picking Cordell Patterson up because it would not shock me by the end of this year if he's getting 40% of the running back basically touches or usage, whatever you want to call, in this Steelers offense.
As a Jalen Warren guy, that just absolutely breaks my brain. The fact that in 2024, the year of our Lord, we're talking about Cordell Patterson getting 40% of the snaps and being a vital part of the Steelers offense. But look, Stockholm syndrome is a real thing. So look, people fall in love with their captors. That's what we're looking at with Cordell Patterson. But what's he, 4,300? Like what is the true upside here? We're hoping he gets in the end zone and gets how many touches? 10 or so? Because I think it's a big Najee game, honestly.
Okay. Here's my thought process. Again, this is them and me, so you're kind of hoping for something anyway.
Right. You're hoping for 2 touchdowns, super efficient. Yeah.
Or say Harris ends up re-aggravating, because he's banged up, right? I think he was wearing some kind of arm.
He had a sling, his arm on a sling.
Yeah. So say that he has a bad injury, and then next thing you know, it's the Cordell show. Again, I just think this Colts defense is awful. This is a dark play, right? We're just hoping for throwing shit against the wall. But so you really do like Najee this week. Is that more just the Colts can't? Again, second most rushing yards in the league. Or is it just the fact that Jalen Warren's out and you think, look, this may be the day that he gets, say, 85% of the snaps?
Najee Harris is 5,600. That's a pretty good price to pay for
fair.
a lot of touches in that. Yep. And that's what I was talking about with Justin Fields is you compare Fields and Harris and get a pretty good size of the market share on that rushing game. And just another, kind of a sling and arrow toward Shane Waldron, like, you had the Colts at your front doorstep. I don't care who your running backs are. The fact that you passed the ball, you had 52 pass attempts, Caleb Williams did against the Colts. Like,
yes.
What are you doing, dude? I don't care. I don't care if it's DeAndre Swift. I don't care if it's Khalil Herbert or Kyrie Blasingame. Like, you run the ball, dude.
Any other backs that you're looking at this week before we move on to everybody's favorite position, wide receiver?
Yeah. See that mid tier with like Aaron Jones and James Conner is like my favorite. I don't even mind Jacobs either. Just because, like I said, I do think that maybe Green Bay skews a little bit more toward the run if Jordan Love does play. Other than that, the top end, I really don't have a lot of. And Kamara with, all the possible Chris Olave injury now. That.
What about Jerome Ford? 5,700 Vegas. The minute we think we have this backfield, and this is also a negative, Devontae Foreman had all those rush attempts, and then last week wasn't on the field at all. I know it was a bad week for Cleveland, but Vegas is the kind of team I could see them getting up. If Ford gets a lot of use, he's been really good when given opportunities. He just, for whatever reason, they don't want to give him more than 10, 15 touches. Does that intrigue you at all against a really bad Vegas run D? I think they're 32nd on DK.
Yeah, I don't mind that one bit. Like, it seemed, his utilization's like super weird. Like, his snaps the first 3 weeks, 75%, 44.4%, and 79%.
Yeah.
Like pulling the rug out, rolling it back out, and then pulling it out again. Like, are we in for because Pierre Strong, I believe, is hurt too.
Yeah.
So it's got to be Ford at this point. I don't know what we're doing, and Cleveland just scares me in totality with that whole team just could implode. I mean, Deshaun Watson is almost persona non grata. It's hard enough to when you want to play like Amari Cooper and you can't. David Njoku's hurt. It's tough out there in those Cleveland streets. God bless you if you're tied to that team, but I don't mind at that price though, 5,700. But that's the kind of the drawback is that there's guys I like better that are cheaper. Like Najee Harris is another.
And he's more owned than I thought. 7%. Najee's only 1.5% projected owned more than Harris. I'm with you. I definitely like him more. Before moving on to the wide receivers, first of all, Sam, thank you very much for the compliment. We appreciate very much that. My man Ronell, who I do the wrestling podcast with, also with Jorge. Go over and check out the Inside the Squared Circle YouTube page, Twitter page. We do storylines you need to know. Ronell, great to see you. And Mr. Scamper's throwing a little bit more fuel on the Dalton revenge fire. They benched Dalton on the trade deadline on his birthday. Smash. Love that. All right, wide receivers. Wow. I mean, a lot of juicy matchups this week. I mean, let's just start with, Chase and Harrison, who, because to me, I love Jefferson, but I believe in your boy, Jair. And I think that is enough reason when he's that much more expensive than the rest of the guys to fade him this way. I mean, obviously, MME, take your shot if you want to, but that scares me. I believe in Jair. Right? You're the Packers fan. Tell me, am I nuts or?
Week 17, 2022, Jair Alexander against Justin Jefferson, 1 catch for 3 yards.
There you go.
I remember it clear as day because I had Justin Jefferson in Best Ball Mania final.
Oh no.
Yeah, not great, Bob. But that's 8,700, the top wide receiver as far as price. I mean, what you're getting into, and Justin Jefferson could break it in anytime. So not super worried, but that you always had that in the back of your mind. And then looking at Harrison, no McBride, you're going to have Elijah Higgins out there. If that game is going to shoot out, Harrison's going to have to be a big part of that. So 7,500, I don't mind that price. AJ Brown looks like he's going to be missing another week, more than likely. So that's going to not be great there. Look, Rashee Rice should be.
And Brown both miss. I mean, is that just Barkley be damned?
It is. It's Goddard season, baby.
Oh, okay. So you thinking a rehash of? I mean, obviously, not calling for a 10 catch, whatever it was, but you think again, just peppered with targets.
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to tight end, certainly. But yeah, it's looking like that. But Rashee Rice at 7,300 should be another $1,000 more expensive the way he's playing. Same with Nico Collins. Nico Collins is just built upon his fantastic season from last year. Now, we talked about it earlier. That gets a little more condensed with Tank Dell out. So, outside of like those top 5 or 6 guys, you're looking at Rice and Collins like are really, really attractive prices.
How about the Jaguars run man over 50% of the time? They're the only team in the NFL running man anywhere near that rate. Nico, the last 2 years, almost 4 yards per route run versus man. And you might go, Keith, well, surely Jacksonville will adjust and not play as much man. Well, Josh Allen last week has 42 touchdowns to 4 picks over the last 3 seasons versus man. And it's like 22-22 picks to touchdowns to picks versus zone. What did the Jags do? They ran man almost the whole game and got cooked. So I don't think they're going to change. That's very good for Nico Collins. I feel like that he is the automatic start for me, like cash or MME, because, anyway, 28 targets, at least 8 in each, 18 receptions. He leads the league in receiving yards. And then again, no Tank Dell. And he's just, I think only Tyreek Hill and I believe it's either CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson have averaged more yards per route run versus man the last 2 years. So 100% with you there. I'm also there on Rice, who I meant to look up his ownership because I think that he might be a little bit lower owned than he definitely should be this week.
He shouldn't be. He shouldn't be anywhere like
I agree.
I would say below 10%, but that's wild if he is. By the way, we went through some baseball stuff. Like Karl Anthony Towns just got traded to the Knicks, by the way. I don't know if you saw that.
Really?
Yeah.
What did they trade back?
A package around Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo.
Wow.
For Karl Anthony Towns. It's not a Woj bomb anymore. What's the Shams equivalent of a Woj bomb? I don't know what that could be. We'll figure it out. Tell us in the chat what you think the Sham Sharania, what you think what that bomb is going to be, because it's going to have to be something.
Godwin, by the way, another guy that I don't understand how he's 6,800. This is an unbelievable matchup. Philadelphia has been cooked by receivers in the slot this year. Eventually we're going to see Mike Evans. Like when it's a team that struggles versus the outside, I do think Mike Evans is going to have one of those Mike Evans games where he scores 30, 40 points. This is not the week or the defense to see that happen, but Godwin at 68, Shabam is pretty.
What about a Sham Wow? I know that's Pat,
I like that one as well. I like both of those.
Those are good.
Mr. Scampers with breaking news. Also, Shohei Ohtani is good.
We've talked about baseball, obviously football, basketball, like hockey starting soon. So there we go.
We
might as well hit them all.
MLS, if you want the other major sport in America. The Bears receiving corps. We talked about the Rams have been, again, like Matt Stafford and a bunch of guys that sound like what is it? A vampire league wide receiver roster. Just
a dead dynasty teams. Bench.
Cooked last week. And now you got a Doomsday. Looks like Allen's back. And then obviously DJ Moore. I do think if Allen, we hear doesn't have any limitations, I think that's the guy I like the most. I think a Doomsday is going to be crazy owned because of his week. Last week, now I will say that it's like 8 of his 9 receptions, 156 of his 157 yards in the season have came versus zone. Ironically, the 1 catch, 1 yard equaled his only touchdown of the season, which was versus man. But a team that plays a lot of zone, which of those guys would you roll with?
I still like the Doomsday at the price. I know he's going to be like super high owned, but like I almost don't even care at this point. Like, but the thing is with like Keenan Allen is, put up a 2.36 yards per out run last season. Like he's been a pretty good over 2, he's been a great wide receiver, but I'm a little worried that he could be like entering his Tyler Boyd phase where he's almost an afterthought with like if a Doomsday like continues this and DJ Moore is still DJ Moore, Keenan Allen might be like the afterthought. And I'm ready to totally get my face like pushed in the dirt over that and see Keenan Allen go like 12 targets, 11 for 156 and 2. Like I'm just waiting for that because I'm talking about it right now. But yeah, 6,100 is like not a bad price for Allen to and he's not going to be owned. I mean, he has to
1.5%. Holy cow! I may have to reconsider and have Allen and more MME lineups. That's the 35th wide receiver. Wow, I did not think it was going to be that low.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like nobody's going to click him. He's got the scarlet letter on DraftKings, so like that automatically is like that takes your ownership down like 5 to 10%. Is like having the Q tag.
T. Higgins, another guy to me in MME that I like because you're getting, obviously the value compare. He's still got 6 targets his first action, 2 red zones. The big deal is the Panthers have quietly been pretty good versus number 1 wide receivers. The secondary options have done very well. Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, Rashid Shaheed all had 16 points or more versus this team. And I mean, obviously, like, this is kind of what happens in a lot of these Bengals games is either you decide you're going to try to play Chase pretty much straight up, maybe a little help over the top, or you're just going to bracket him at all times. And when that happens, that's usually when Higgins just feasts with what the Panthers have done against other teams with really good number 1 receiver. We're talking, Chris Olave, Devontae Adams. Well, the ghost of Devontae Adams is the number 1 receiver for those teams that the number 2 and 3 options cooked. How about Terry McLaurin, who had his breakout last week? Arizona, not a great secondary. I do feel like they're going to start unleashing Daniels, right? He had 11 yards per attempt last week, which I know it was helped by the bomb that he hit McLaurin on late, but still 11 yards per attempt. Crazy. He completed 90% of his passes.
Yeah. If you're the believer in the Arizona Washington, that 50 and a half over under total. Yeah, McLaurin's a great way to play it because it's really hard to play any of the ancillary guys, with the Commanders. Now going back to Green Bay and Minnesota, like I really like Jordan Addison at that price of 5,100 because, that game is going to be back and forth. I don't think it's going to be a, a blowout or anything. He's probably going to see a lot of Eric Stokes. I totally like that as far as if you're trying to pin some more production out of a non-Jefferson $8,700 price. I do like that there. I don't even mind Christian Kirk either.
I don't either.
Like his price has gotten a little bit too low, and I know he hasn't been like great either, but
crazy low ownership. I looked it up. He's like projected to be the 45th most owned wide receiver this week.
He has to stay. I mean, he's got like Jacksonville stink on him. The fact that he hasn't been like great, but he got back into target earning last week, and I think that's a pretty good price to like. It's no barrier to like fit in a Christian Kirk and still get like 20 DraftKings points. But then you get like to the dead zone of guys like it's like after a Dunze and Kirk at 5,200, you're in Addison at 51. You're really into that dead zone of guys I don't want to put in a lineup. The only other guy I would say there, like Xavier Legette at 4,800, I wrote about him as a look ahead waiver guy at Optimus Fantasy, where look, Adam Thielen is hurt now. He went on IR with a hamstring injury. If this offense has a new lease on life, you're going to look at the second target now. It's basically going to be Legette. Like, are you scared of Tommy Tremble or, any of these other guys, Jonathan Mingo? Like, who are you scared of any of those guys to be able to earn targets away from anybody else? Like Deontay Johnson, we know he's going to get he's probably good for at least a dozen targets. But outside of that, if Dalton's going to throw and they're going to get like 40 pass attempts in, you almost got to figure 8 to 10 are going to Legette at some point, right?
No, I do like him a lot this week. I do like some of these guys in this price range. I look at somebody like Michael Wilson, who he eats versus zone. This is a Washington defense that runs zone a lot. He's also on the field for 2 receiver sets, which is really big. Dortch is obviously coming in playing the slot and 3 receivers, but Wilson has been out there more. You could talk me into Darnell Mooney. This is 2 weeks in a row. He's been targeted a lot, been a big part of this Falcons passing game. But again, the guy that I love him this week is Calvin Austin at 3,300. Colts run the zone at almost 80% of their plays. Calvin Austin's target rate versus zone this year is 20%. George Pickens is like 20.04%. So they're basically equally targeted. if you look at versus man, Pickens is targeted like 35% and Austin's 14. So it's a huge difference. Austin's averaging almost 3 yards per route run versus zone as well. And this is a Colts team that has given up the most passing plays of 40 yards or more. I think there's a very good chance at 3,300, he could score kind of like what he did last week. What do you get up with, like 16, 17, 19.5 points? I mean, even if he gets me 16, 17 at his price, that's a boom play. I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, there's another guy too with, we saw with Devontae Adams getting hurt. Trey Tucker at 3,600 too.
Yes.
I definitely like that. It's going to be Brock Allen Bowers. We're going to talk about that certainly, but Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker's, gotten a lot of run, earned a lot of targets. I know a lot of that was in kind of a crappy time, but still, you can't shake a stick at like 9 targets. I'm going to pull it up right now for Trey Tucker. What did he do?
Yeah, 7 for 96, the touchdown. Like he's
a touchdown. Yeah, 37% of the air yards as well. He's running 82.5, 64, 7.4, and 87% of routes in the 3 games so far this season. So he has been very much involved. Yeah, Trey Tucker is a guy that's going to go he's going to go way past a lot of people who won't even like pay it a second thought, but he's a pretty sharp play there. And then looking at some other guys, like nobody's really jumping out at me. Maybe a Noah Brown, I guess, if you're really trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel as far as commanders there.
I was going to ask, what about McCaffrey? He was on there a good bit too. Would you like Noah Brown more because he's more likely to make big plays than McCaffrey? Or
his route, looking at Noah Brown's routes, he ran 58% of the routes last week, a big jump up. So I think he's starting to get worked into being the second. The second wide receiver there consistently. McCaffrey's been pretty, McCaffrey's routes almost got cut in half last week. He went from 70 to 60 to 35.
Wow.
So I'm a little bit worried there. And not only that, but like when the formation condenses, McCaffrey comes off the field. So that's where I'm a little bit worried about, as opposed to a guy like Josh Downs, who is like slot only, but they play a lot of 11 personnel. So like it works that way. And then like the inverse of you have a guy like Chris Godwin or CeeDee Lamb that play in the slot and 3 wide, but then stay on the field as an outside receiver and 2 wide. You don't have that with McCaffrey, and with Noah Brown there soaking up more routes. It's a pretty thin bet for McCaffrey, especially like if you're looking. He only ran 11 routes last week.
No, that's I didn't know it was that low. Demario Douglas, a guy too, 4,500, ran 49 of 52 routes, or was on the field for 49 of 52 offensive snaps. He ran routes on a majority of them. I think San Francisco is going to roll because, to your point, like I think they're that caged animal in the corner. And I think they're going to come out swinging, have a really
They kind of need to at this point.
Right.
Man.
And if that's the case, Patriots, obviously are going to have to throw a lot. That's really good for Demario. It's kind of what happened last week, right? They're getting killed by the Jets, 9 targets.
Niners are like the ultimate piss or get off the pot team this week.
Totally agree. All right. Before we move on tight end, Markin Souls. I don't know if I pronounced that right. What up, fellas? He's got a question for us. Yoshi, Quentin, Tucker for the flex, 0.55 PPR. I guess he has Laporta as well. Pick 2 of them. You can't sit Quentin right now, can you?
I like Trey Tucker straight up over Quentin now.
Okay.
Just because I think they're going to be passing a lot more in that game. Yeah, pass volume is going to be, I think, there for the Raiders versus the Chargers, where I think it still kind of could be there too, but it would really need a Chiefs like blowout to even get there.
Their offense does not look like that kind of offense the first few weeks.
Right. And with Laporta, it's tough because I would take Laporta and Trey Tucker. Like of those 4 guys, Laporta is getting like the Kittle treatment where they have so many weapons there that like not everybody can eat. And so now we're seeing Laporta, with Jameson Williams, studding up. He had a kind of dud game last week, but I'm still totally fine on JMO, like rest of season wise. But look, with those 2 running backs, and now you've got Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, there's not enough football for all 5 of those guys. And like 2 of those guys have to kind of ride some pine as far as fantasy value goes. So like,
if only somebody would have said that all summer, Kev, right? Like, didn't 2 people that are on this show right now warn somebody about taking so much Laporta?
Yeah, her name rhymes with Lacey Therese. Love you, Stacy. But yeah, that was the whole thesis of like, why is Sam Laporta tight end 1 when you've got literally 4 other guys that could be tight end 1? You don't have to draft in the 3rd round. Like, Laporta was never falling, so it made him such a tough click. But yeah, that was always in the range of outcomes where if like Jameson Williams showed something, then it's going to make it that much harder for Laporta to hit the upside, even at tight end, which tight end is an absolute wasteland. And even he's not like providing anything.
It is a wasteland for sure. Let's talk about that wasteland.
Let's talk. Yeah. Well, a good segue, like unintentional, but
did you think that we would ever see the day again that Travis Kelce would be 5,800? And I still don't really want to play him.
Yeah, it's not super attractive, and it feels like the Lakers, where it's like, they're trying to just hold Kelce till like the playoffs and like unleash him because he's 35 years old, and what's a regular season? We'll get there at 11-6 and then do some damage in the playoffs. But yeah, even Kelce there is like not super attractive. Like looking at these top tight, I mean, obviously McBride is out. Hawkinson is not going to be playing for another few weeks. Njoku's out. Ingram's out. And then Kelce kind of just feels like, Kittle has no injury designation, but even he kind of just feels like take it or leave it. Brock Bowers.
Does scare me that if Debo's out, though, historically Kittle feasts in games that Debo misses. So
could be Juwan Johnson too. Like that's the thing
fair.
where
Yep.
Yeah, I think Juwan, I mean, we didn't talk about him in the wide receivers, but I think a lot of people are looking at Kittle being, with no injury designation, even like Debo. I don't think Debo's going to play just the way I feel like they can hold him out. It's not like they're playing like, Seattle or something in division, or like Philly or Green Bay or something like that, where it's like a game they need that might come down to like if those teams tie, in the standings, they're not.
You think Gonzalez is going to be on Ayuk, right? Which is one reason I do like Jennings this week in cash, as well as I just think Gonzalez is a legit shutdown corner, and I think he's going to be on Ayuk the majority of the game.
Exactly. So, like, I still think Jennings is absolutely in play this week. I mean, I don't mind Kittle either, but that's still that's a pretty hefty price to pay for George Kittle at 5,500 when I would feel way better with Devontae Adams out and having to play Brock Allen Bowers at 56.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I'm with. I was going to say, you convinced me too. I wasn't even thinking about it. If Smith and Brown are out, obviously Goddard is going to get a monster target. So, and they're going to be less on. Like I think Kittle. Now Bowers might, with the news coming out, I haven't checked since it's changed, but I don't even know.
That's probably like 25 to 30%.
Right. I don't know though if Goddard's going to be monster on even coming off his huge game, because it's so funny even early in the season seeing that. I agree, but seeing that number 4, that red 4 for right now, the Bucs are 4th versus tight ends, people will hesitate and just remember it's a small sample size. Cole Kmet, again, the Bears are putting him on the field. Rams really struggle with tight ends. That seems to be a yearly thing. I don't know if that's just kind of the concepts that they run. I am a little nervous with it being Eberflus and just that coaching staff. For whatever reason, he won't be running routes on a majority of the passing plays, but I like that.
Well, that's the thing, though, is that if there's one thing that Shane Waldron has done, he was playing Gerald Everett at like an ungodly amount of routes in week 1, 64% to Cole Kmet's 36. And then last 2 weeks, it's flipped 59% for Kmet, 45% for Everett. And then last week, it's like back to normal, like from like last season, where 71% Kmet, 29% for Everett as far as routes per Caleb Williams drop back. But 11 targets last week, 5 targets the week before. Like, I think we're fine. Just the way the tight end position has kind of come out I mean, Komet's a low end tight end one, and I think he's a perfectly
for sure.
fine.
Oh no, he's definitely a tight end
play.
one the way it is right now. I'm with you.
Right, and then like at 4,400, yeah, that's a pretty good price.
I like Conklin at 3,600. I just think Surtain is, gonna make the Jets go somewhere else. Now, granted, that could be the backs. We've seen them really pound, Allen and Hall, obviously both in the passing game and also obviously just giving them rush attempts. But Conklin, had that big game last week after doing nothing the first 2 weeks. I don't know if you saw Garrett Wilson was like, this guy's really good. I agree.
Evergreen, baby, evergreen.
But I do like Conklin this week as well. You got any guys? You want some Strange again this week, or was that a one-time thing?
I'm all right with it. It's if you're like salary saving, like I don't mind that one bit. I mean, 3,100 it is, but there's another 3,100 tight end that I do like. But a man by the name of Elijah Higgins, who will be the tight end.
Scampers are on the same wavelength tonight for sure.
Hey, in the group chat, I wanted him on the graphic because we're gonna talk. I wanted to talk about him. Like, yeah, I know Trey McBride is out. We've talked enough about the 50.5 over under that the Cardinals and Commanders have. But look, Tim Bryman is a blocking dude. Like, he's not going to be out there, route collecting or anything like that, and just running cardio. I don't know how I feel about that statement, but I'm just going to give that a hearty chuckle and a guffaw here. But I do like Higgins as far as like if you're I like him better than Strange. There's not a lot of options in the like really low end of tight end, but I mean 70% of the routes, and Higgins is a converted wide receiver too. Like that's like the perfect confluence of like, if you're going to get a tight end, you're going to get him cheap. You're getting him in a great game environment. He used to play wide receiver. Like, I mean, granted, he probably is going to be like 40% owned, but he might be the 40% owned guy that you need to have.
Well, I got a guy that's even cheaper. I keep talking about him. It's Eric Hall Jr., 2,500 for the Bengals. He has only ran a ridiculous 21 routes the last 2 weeks. He's got 8 targets and 8 receptions. What I like to see, though, is his snaps went up. He played 21 of the 62 on Monday night. That's the most this season. That was only 10 less than Gesicki, 4 less than Sample. I'm assuming he cannot block, and that is the issue, and I get that. But what's insane is despite only running 21 routes, again, the 8 targets, he was tight end 15 and tight end 20 the last 2 weeks on DraftKings. That is how awful things are. And so when you're saving the kind of money you get to with all at 2,500, and if he's running a route for this season, basically 1 of 3 routes he runs, they're throwing him the ball. He gets a touchdown, say, against a Panthers 30th ranked defense versus opposing tight ends on DraftKings. 2,500, that's great. And if he doesn't do anything, it's only costing 2,500 of your salary. So even if he has, like, say, 1 catch for 8 yards, it's not the end of the world because you're going to be able to load up with more expensive players elsewhere. I do like him a lot this week. Because, again, top 20 the last 2 weeks. And he saw literally, I think it was 11 and 10 routes the last 2 weeks. And, again, 4 catches in both of them, 4 targets in both. I think they know they have something there. Just the issue is, I'm assuming it's got to be the blocking, right? When you're targeting somebody that much, when he's running routes, but he's still not playing a ton of snaps, it's got to be his issues blocking, correct?
Yeah. Looking at his pass blocking percentages per snap, like he's at about the last 2 weeks is about like 19%, which it's not bad. You want him, into like the single digits, but like for a pure receiver, but that's not bad. And the fact that he jumped into the slot 50% of his snaps last week was very bullish as far as receiving upside. And then looking at, like, he feels like 2022 Okonkwo, where he was a guy we were just begging to get more routes. Like, looking at his like yards per out run, like he's at like 2.15 the last 2 weeks, 37% targets per out run. That's what you want. And those are like the screaming values of like a guy that needs to be getting more routes. He feels like a souped up like Ferrari Tanner Hudson right now, as far as, because remember the end of last year, Tanner Hudson was like the route runner, and like marginally fantasy relevant for like a good 6-7 week stretch there. So I think Eric All could be a lot more than what Tanner Hudson was, because they were running like a 4 tight end rotation there, but All can, I think, supplant Gesicki. Like, we haven't seen it as far as the routes that of anything meaningful. Like, actually, if anything, Gesicki's snaps have gone up the last 3 weeks.
Yep.
Same with his routes, but it's weird. But the other guys like Drew Sample, like his routes have dropped a little bit, and like obviously Tanner Hudson hasn't played the last 2 weeks, but I do think he can carve out a little bit more of a role. What makes it a little more difficult is the fact that Higgins is going to be, Higgins, Chase, and Yoshivas all healthy. You can't play 12 personnel all the time, with all 3 of those guys healthy. So I think that makes that path a little more, puts another mini roadblock there. But as far as a guy where if Gesicki's, routes and stuff like that drops, and then you see something meaningful from All, he's on the runway. And that would be a guy to get out ahead of. But 2,500, I don't mind that. I just want a little bit more security and knowing that, because I don't know how I feel if I like a guy that I pay 3,500 and I get a snowflake versus a guy at 25 that's expected to get 2 points based on their projections. I don't know how I feel about that. And that's kind of where I am, where it would probably have to be a meaningful bump up this week to where I would rather pay 2,800 for All next week, knowing that he's primed for more versus 2,500 now as a literal mystery box.
No, that's a very fair point. All right, defenses, and then we'll get out of here, Kev. Sorry again that we had to start an hour late.
If you want to build a lineup, I got it pulled up. We can.
Let's do it. Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's do defenses first, and we'll build something and then get out of here.
All right. I'm not gonna lie, I hate the defenses this week, and
not great.
I keep going back to Minnesota at 2,900. They've had at least 5 sacks in each game, 2 turnovers forced. You look at what they did to San Francisco and Houston the last 2 weeks. I don't, again, like it as much as Love plays. I just don't think Green Bay is going to take that chance. I wouldn't. There's 13 games left after this week, and I think that they're still the favorite to win that division as long as Love is healthy and playing and, the rest of their games. So why rush him in this matchup versus arguably right now the best defense in the NFL, at least especially getting after the QB. Do the Broncos intrigue you at all? Because I don't like that it's a 1:00 game on the East Coast. That's the only reason I'm not in on it, but I don't hate that versus the Jets. And then outside of that, you're going to have to spend up to the Texans and teams higher, where I'm finding defenses that I actually feel good about.
Yeah, I don't feel particularly good about any of the lower priced ones. Like looking at the Panthers, I don't, if you're just totally spending on your lineup and then you just have to throw a defense there, even this week, I don't feel good about any of those, because I Cardinals and Commanders, ad nauseum, we've talked about it. Panthers, don't feel great about that either. I'm going up to I think the defense that I would feel the most comfortable with would be the Bears against the Rams.
Yep, I do like that.
I feel really good about that. I do feel good about, the Vikings too, even though it's on the road versus Green Bay, possibly, whether it's Love with coming off of his MCL sprain, where he could be probably more of a sitting duck. I don't mind that one bit. Other than that, obviously I'm not paying up for a defense, but it would probably be Bears, Vikings, Packers. If I was going to have to really settle on one. I don't mind the Broncos either, but Aaron Rodgers looked pretty good, to the fact where I don't feel as good about that. And I know that's Denver going to an East Coast team for a 1:00 start, to your point. So that's where I kind of, I don't usually get jumping into the mid range as far as defense that much, but it's, your hand is almost forced at this point with just the options, and then just the bad run out of the Commanders and the Patriots at San Francisco, Carolina, maybe the Falcons. I don't mind either there. That's you could talk me into that too.
I can't play them because I'd just be jinxing them, Kevin.
Right,
we got to win this week, so I'm with you. Why don't we, though, let's pull up the DK board and let's build a lineup. I'd like to do that.
Let me get this overlay up so we can do that here. So I got us in the 3 max of 50K nickel here. Throw a lineup in there. Why not? Let's win 50K, shall we?
Absolutely.
I'll go ahead, whatever you want to start with, and we'll go back and forth.
Well, let's put it this way.
We'll haggle it out.
Oh, you just want to go by any position? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, anybody you like in there, we can obviously haggle it out and figure it out.
Like I said, I think that you do need to have Collins. I think he's going to have a monster game. Yeah. He's going to be, I know, super high owned, but as long as we get creative at other positions, I think it could be a good enough game where it's like, actually, let me look up Rice's ownership real quick. And then we can decide between, because I definitely think we need to have one of those two guys. Don't you agree?
Why not both?
Okay, even better.
There's enough cheaper options everywhere else that we could make that work. And do you want to just go full on with not full on, but go on with CJ Stroud at quarterback too?
Yeah, no, I like that because I think that's going to be very different this week.
That was going to be my pick with CJ Stroud. Just to
I like
back
that,
onto
man.
that. And then Rice at 73. Like, I know that's a lot of salary for 3 players, but there's enough where we can make that work.
I completely agree, especially because we're going to go Najee right at back. I think that you kind of talked me into that. I like that play.
The thing, like, I'm looking at that, there's nothing I would really want to correlate that with, like, on the indie side. Like, there's no options that I feel like really good about either. Obviously, Taylor is way too expensive. But like, looking at what could we do? Okay. Anything we could do with the Chargers on the other side?
Ladd, to me, is interesting because if you look, he's actually producing when they're throwing passes, and his yards and fantasy points per route run are very good. It's just they've had games that they have not been able to throw a lot. If we think the Chiefs can force them into that, I do think he's got a great chance to kind of have his first breakout game. Like, I mean, I know he had a touchdown week 1, but I'm talking about 8-9 receptions potentially.
Right. What is one guy we didn't talk about was Brian Robinson with Eckler out.
I love it. If you're not playing Daniels, to me, you have to play Robinson. I almost feel like, at least in some of your lineups, because Eckler, I mean, significant snaps, and who is now their second back without Eckler there? I don't even know.
Is it Jeremy McNichols now?
That's it. Yeah. So I think Robinson's going to end up getting a monster. And Joe talked about this on our show earlier this week on Fantasy Six Pack. His yards and stuff are very good. He's just kind of been punished that the first 2 games, he didn't really do anything in the pass game. I think that changes. He had a ton of catches the last 6-7 weeks.
He's always been good in the pass game. Yep. Like, he's a sneaky good receiver. Like, people don't think that, but like his profile doesn't really lend itself to being like, you don't think about that.
Yeah. So his last 6 games last year, to your point, 22 receptions for 231 yards and 2 touchdowns in the passing game. And just Eckler's kind of, taking a lot of that upside away from him. That's not an issue this week. So I really like that. Let's do the defense, and then we can kind of figure out if we want to spend more at tight end or if we want to spend more at flex. So we'll kind of know what we have left to spend. Because I'm with you. I don't really like just throwing just one of those like absolute, like, I kind of feel like you have to at least spend, 2,900, 2,800, somewhere in that range.
For the Vikings in?
Yeah. I mean, that's the defense that I like the most out of those. What does that leave us with? I'm sorry, my eyes are not great. 9,100?
91. If we wanted to correlate with Brian Robinson and throw in Higgins at tight end,
I like that.
I think that would give us like mid 5.
I do like that a lot. Because he's what, like 31?
That gets us 6K in our flex. To where if we wanted to put in.
See, I'm trying to figure out, do we run Jones instead of Harris? Because then there's correlation of the Vikings D. You would think that if they're winning, more Aaron Jones And then that way, I know you're concerned about the correlation with Harris, and then we could flex somebody that maybe we like a little bit more, has more upside.
Yeah, let me put in. So that gives us 5,200 if we take out Najee, because I do like B-Rob. I think that's a really good. I think I like him as a better play than Najee. I still think they're both great plays, but I think
the volume's huge on both. Just Robinson's been a little bit more effective, and also he's just. I mean, let's be honest, he's got a better offense.
Right, and who's is Jeremy Nichols taking touches away from Robinson? Probably not. At least not anything meaningful.
Man, there's a lot of guys in this range that I do like. I mean, we could go Goddard, Odunze. You could go
play double tight. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
If there was somebody that you really liked, if there's something you really liked at tight end, you could almost flip, or I'm sorry, not tight end, but as like a super low end wide receiver, you could throw Goddard in the tight end spot and then just dumpster dive at wide receiver.
What about Trey Tucker? Could we make that work?
Tucker is what?
36? Is that right?
I think we'd be like 400 off.
Okay.
We try it. Only way we know is if we try it. Tucker.
Yep, you're right. 400 exactly.
Okay. All right, so go back to flex here. So yeah, we have 5,200 there. I mean, there's good options.
We could go Komet Tucker, but if you like Goddard, I'm okay with that too. I'm good with either.
What's Komet?
Komet was 4,400, so you save 700 there.
It's like we're playing the 2 for 2. Do you like the two? Do you like Odunze, Higgins, or Komet and Tucker?
What do you think? Because I guess the problem is Allen coming back. Because if you're talking volume, it's going to be much bigger.
And Komet could get squeezed out of that. That's my thought. Is that if there's anybody that gets squeezed out with all three of those,
let's do that, and we could always adjust Ladd. I like Ladd, but we can probably find somebody there.
So you want to take Ladd out and then
to put Tucker there and go with Goddard, and then we'll find that other play, right? Like, don't you think that brought from a volume standpoint?
Goddard, where is LB? Because I don't feel like scrolling through everybody. Trey Tucker, so that gives us 4,400 in the flex.
All right, let's see here what we got now.
And there's options out there. We talk.
I mean, a lot of guys.
Mooney's out there. Cordell Patterson's out there. Yoshi.
I like Mooney because the Saints have really struggled with horizontal, like vertical horizontal routes. He's 7th in fantasy points, but the Falcons have those 2 offensive linemen out, and I worry, are we going to have time to throw the ball down the field? Or I would really like that play. Your boy Dortch or Wilson, I don't hate either one of those. We could go with Johnson. Well, I guess that would be too much on the Bears. Or do you think that – we didn't go with Komet, so I actually don't hate that. Because they are basically saying, right, it's going to be they're going to give him a lion's share of the carries, right? Or no?
Who's that?
Roshan.
I'm trying to figure out. Like, I like Roshan. I'm just not convinced that they're going to do the things that they say they're going to do, and they want to give Roshan more opportunity. Like, trust me, I've learned in my days of like listening to Bruce Arians talk about how he wants to use X, Y, and Z, and then the complete opposite happens. And then the contemporary comparison is Sean Payton that says he loves Marvin Mims and wants to use him, and then trots him out on 17% of routes. Like, the ultimate coaches are the ultimate liars. That's why the Coach Speak Index exists on Twitter.
I do really like Michael Wilson at 4,200. He saw 9 targets last week. He really did not play that much the first. Let me see his snaps. Because I'm pretty sure that last week was when they unleashed him from a route. And
he's been there like X receiver. Like, he's running like 90%.
91% of the snaps last week. He ran 100% of the routes 90% week 2, 97 week 1. And again, this is a defense that they are so bad versus the pass.
And they're super. And I mean, that with McBride out, that consensus pretty.
That's what I mean. Because again, if you want to go Dortch, I think we can also fit him. I don't mind it either. It's just Wilson has typically been the guy that eats against the zone, and Dortch is the guy that eats versus man.
Yeah, I mean, Dortch has kind of been like up and down routes wise, so that's why I would rather have Wilson, I think, at least this week. Plus, I think Wilson will carry a lot less ownership as well. You even versus Dortch. Like Dortch is a trendy kind of guy. Wilson's almost like the afterthought, but I think Wilson's perfectly fine. And then so we have 8,900. Do we want to throw Goddard in there, or do you want to go Higgins and then get another option at wideout or running back or something?
I mean, I kind of like the Goddard Tucker. I mean, that's a lot of volume in this lineup because
does Tucker fit? He does. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that was kind of why I pivoted because I knew that if we made that change, we could get both. Because I really do like what you're thinking there with Goddard and Tucker. That I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if even with Bowers, I'm sure he's going to see up to. I still think Tucker could end up being the most targeted guy in that Raiders game. I'm fascinated to see how they look without Adams because there's a lot of stuff out there. It looks like he's kind of been loafing and not.
Is he working his way toward a trade with the Jets?
That's what I'm thinking. And I keep telling people if Tucker, Myers, if those guys are out there and Adams gets traded, like I know it's not a great offense, but man, they're guys to get guys on the waiver that are going to get that kind of volume. This Raiders team's not very good. They're going to be down throwing a lot. I really like that, but I do, man. I like this lineup a lot. And if we want to spend up, right, we got an extra, $200. So
that's why I took the Vikings out. If there's anybody else that you like,
you like the Bears, right? Like
I do like the Bears. Yeah. I mean, I think them and the Vikings are like on par. If you like them more, because we've got the extra 200, like.
No, I think I like the Bears more. I mean, come on, like the Rams pulled the rabbit out of the hat, but that was in division. They're at home too, right? If I'm not mistaken, they're going to be on the road in Chicago. Like I think the Bears are worth it. I really like this lineup. Why don't you read that off, Kevin, real quick, in case anybody's listening and not watching.
Yeah. So we're doing the whole Texans with Nico Collins and CJ Stroud. We've got Aaron Jones and Brian Robinson Jr. at running back. Ryan Robinson Jr. We've got Michael Wilson bringing that back on the Arizona side at wide receiver, along with Rashee Rice as well. Dallas Goedert, who will be the main beneficiary if both A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are out. Of course, Devonta Smith coming off of a concussion that should never have happened, by the way.
I agree.
By Peyton Turner, that late hit, like, missed me with that, trying to defend any of that. And then Trey Tucker and Bears defense. So pretty good little lineup I think we got going on here in the nickel.
I love that. All right, real quickly before we get out of here, I have a question. 12-man PPR flex spot, Alec Pierce or Emmanuel Wilson?
It's Alec Pierce.
Okay.
No, were you going to say Wilson?
I was going to say I kind of like Wilson this week because I agree with you that if Willis plays, I think the Packers' game plan is we're going to try to just run it and run to where I have concerns about this Colts offense. So I was very high on preseason. It's kind of a mess, but you're right. I mean, in a full PPR, it is kind of crazy to go with a secondary back. He's not like a pass catching back. Like they're actually using him more. Come in and just spell Jacobs to where Pierce also kind of guy can take any play to the house at any point. So I like that. But Kevin, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just going to say that, the fact that Alec Pierce has, gotten off to such a good start has been very bad for A.D. Mitchell too. So I think that Pierce is just going to be out there running routes. I mean, he's run 83, 92, 91% of routes last 3 weeks. So guy's always going to be out there versus Wilson, where if you're looking at, what he did, let me pull it up here. season high, 40% of routes, 41% of snaps. I think that was just a little bit of an anomaly considering, they had Malik Willis, and if they have Jordan Love, I don't think they're going to be using him as much. I do like that if Jordan Love is out there and they do lean to the run, it's probably going to be more Jacobs than anybody.
Yeah, I agree. We appreciate all the people for joining us tonight. I am actually going to be on Jeff Lambert's Armchair Fantasy Show in 7 minutes. You can check that out on the Going for Two YouTube channel. Kevin, I really appreciate you. Me and Kevin and Joe Matz will be back next week to help you fill out your MME lineups for week 5. But we appreciate all you guys, and we'll see you soon.